Thank you, Doc. I hope I meet your expectations tonight about talking about Agenda 21. What I'm hoping to do is to give you a little bit of information about a very subtle global program that is being implemented throughout the country, and particularly in Northeast Ohio, that will impact almost immediately your private property, and ultimately those of you who have grandchildren like I do, will be your grandchildren's personal freedom. This is a very deep program, and I need to say that a lot of folks will say it's a conspiracy. There's a couple of bloggers on Green City, Blue Lake, if you've heard of them. David Beach has called us Misguided Tea Party, and what's her name, Angie Schmidt, has called us Agenda 21 crazies. So they're using Alinsky's, number 5 or whatever, to demean us. So what I decided to do, since they think it's a conspiracy, until I can prove, until I can prove it's not a conspiracy, I'm going to wear my tinfoil hat. And it won't take long. It's going to take about 3 slides, and you can see it's not a conspiracy. Okay, Steve. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the UN history of Agenda 21. It started out as actually in 1978, where it began. But where it really became active was in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro, where they had a great conference. Believe it or not, there were 193 nations there. There were 20,000 non-government reps there. There were 8,000 people in the press. One heck of a party in Rio, wasn't it? George H.W. Bush signed it for us. He was the signatory for the country. And then, really more important, Bill Clinton created something called the President's Council on Sustainable Development. And that began the process to pretty much reinvent our government along the lines of what they call sustainable development. Finally, it was destined to be a treaty, but our Senate refused to sign it as a treaty. Thank you very much. Okay. This is a listing of the 40 chapters of Agenda 21. More than 300 pages. Basically, I would just say that it covers just about everything that you could possibly think of in your life. Everything from what you eat to where you live, from whether or not you have a car, what kind of high-rise they're going to put you in, what you eat. If you remember, they're trying to even tell our kids what to eat in their school lunches. That's just a piece of it. Okay. My take on this is it is a global central planning. It's really what it is. It isn't anything else but that. And the next slide says that it is redistribution of wealth. It is destined to transfer our wealth, our resources, our knowledge, our technology around the world because we want us to be equal. Okay. Okay, here's my proof. I'm taking it off. It was in the Federal Register, and the words are that the Sustainable Development Challenge Program, which is the source of a lot of the grants, it specifically says in the Federal Register a step in implementing Agenda 21. So if anybody says this is a conspiracy, you can point them toward this source. I forgot to mention that at the bottom of all the slides that I have, the actual source of the information is there. The ones that don't have it, it's something I made up. Okay. Okay, we're talking about regional governance. Let's do a definition first. There are 2 or 3 slides that will tell you a little bit about regional governance. I think the key words here are that it's to be operated for the collective, not necessarily for individuals. That regionalism also makes an attempt to overcome obstacles which might arise between local competing governments for funds, And then the last one is that it forces suburbs and the cities to work together for what they call the common good. Okay, more impacts. What a regional government does is it is driven by government, not by we the people. It's an expansion of government. And as you can see, it increases the power, and when there is a difference, then regional governance steps in, or at least attempts to step in. You should know that what's going on and what we're getting at tonight is there is a very strong effort to implement regional governance in Northeast Ohio. We'll talk about it a little bit more. Okay, destroys traditional boundaries. One of the slides you're going to see later on shows that some of the metropolitan planning organizations actually now go across state lines. So the whole point here is to remove city, county, city and county boundaries along with the states. It provides or transfers a lot of authority to the executive branch, taking it away from we the people. And my real problem is that it's run by appointed bureaucrats that we have no control over. They are not accountable to us. And then that makes those who are elected officials pretty much rubber stamps. Okay. Now a little bit of a timeline, going back to 2006, some Cleveland area planners were attempting to implement revenue sharing. I'm assuming that most of you know that that means taking money from the suburbs and transferring it to other entities, usually the inner cities. They also like something called urban growth boundaries, and we'll talk about that in a little bit and tell you how dangerous that is. Then in 2007, the proposal came up to coordinate combined metropolitan planning organizations, which were implemented by the federal government to basically allocate federal transportation funds and a little bit of clean water. Okay. In 2008, Arlen Bush was the Speaker of the House, and they attempted to run through some regionalistic legislation. Not much of it got through, thankfully. And then in 2009, a group of folks here in maybe Cuyahoga County put together a group called the Regional Prosperity Initiative, where it was planned to try and create a regional, turn it off, okay, regional planning organization to go way beyond just transportation funding. And Obama thought that was wonderful. He liked that plan. Here is a picture of the metropolitan planning organizations that are involved. NOACA is the driver here. That's Northeast Ohio Area-Wide something.
Coordinating agency.
Thank you. You all know it, okay. They were the fiscal agent for what ended up being the planning organization. It involves 12 counties all the way from Lorraine to Ashtabula. Okay, then we bring in what Obama's policy is, which is the Sustainable Communities Initiative, which puts out federal dollars, but it's conditioned upon a regionalistic approach. So that means that Medina County, where I live, can't really have a say on its own. For those federal dollars, it has to be a consensus arrived at by those representatives of the 12 counties. NOACA is the metropolitan, or the MPO for those, 5 counties, and you can see that their fundamental responsibility was transportation, water quality, and air quality. You'll see on their website that they claim they have no influence on land, and this is where we're going to get into the sticky wicket now. They have a question and answer page, and it says they don't have the funding or the legal authority to influence land. But the next 5 slides, you're going to see that it ain't really true. They have a lot of influence on how our land is impacted, primarily by the way they manage the transportation funds. Okay. The key words here are land use, transportation, fabric, and these all have come from the website, by the way. The second part of it is that they want to work on land use plans and zoning codes. So far we have a couple of instances where they truly do have impact on land. And the next one, another is one of the transportation goals. Compact land use is a real code for density. The idea on, the long-term idea on Agenda 21 is to move folks into the urban areas, move them off the suburban areas into high-rise, more dense housing. And you're going to see a lot more of what HUD has in mind for us in a couple of slides. The principle, another one says they want to preserve open land. And my question is, every time you hear open land and you go to one of these meetings, hi Doug, glad you made it. Every time you see open land, you got to ask the question, whose land is that? Because basically what they're saying is if you own property out in the suburbs and it's open land, they want to preserve it. They don't want you to let you use it for whatever purpose you might want to use it for. So when they say open land and you're in a meeting, you want to ask whose land is it and are they here at this meeting to speak for it? Okay. Just another slide that talks about land control. That's that sheet. And another one. Let's skip that one too. Okay. In 2010, NOACA and the Regional Prosperity Initiative, NOACA was the funding the fiscal agent for what became the Northeast Ohio Sustainable Communities Consortium. And I'm going to call it the consortium because that's a tongue twister. And you can see what a couple of their objectives were. It was regionalism, and it was compact housing, density, cluster development. Okay, this is the area that the consortium covers. It's 12 counties. And some of the objectives. Reduce redundancy. I should have started off by saying that there's a lot of the issues within this program that we probably would want to support. Clean air, clean water, conservation. The issue is that it's alleged to be run by a bunch of bureaucrats over which we have no control and with whom we cannot hold accountable. So I should have said at the beginning that I'm all for clean air. I just don't want some bureaucrat telling me how to do it. Okay. So the next thing, last December, this consortium hired some consultants, and something like $2 million worth of expense. Your money, by the way. So let's take a look at who they are. When I heard who they were, I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the website, try to find out what are they bringing to the table. Why are they coming here? Okay, what's next, Steve? Sasaki is the lead consultant. They're from Worcester, Massachusetts. Then we've got Fregonese from Portland. Portland is the poster child for sustainable development. They've been at it for about 30 years, and they're very good at it. City architecture, and then Nelson Nygaard from San Francisco. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of those. Nelson Nygaard has been here before. They helped work on the RTA in Cleveland. Their specialty, one of them, is something called transit-oriented development, TOD for short. And that is, the principle of that is that they want to encourage housing around the nodes of transportation so that when you live there, you don't need a car. You can walk to your transportation. In San Francisco, they're already doing it. They have a 340, 370 unit housing that doesn't have any garages, doesn't allow cars, and it's right along the one of the high-speed rail units. And that's what this is about. Okay. I'm not sure why city architecture is a consultant on this. I suspect it has to do with something about inclusionary zoning, which we're going to talk about shortly. Okay. Next, okay. Sasaki had a big hand in Des Moines in creating something called the Tomorrow Plan. It's their 20-year plan for economic development, for zoning. But primarily, the thing I picked out of there was that it is highlighting something called inclusionary zoning. They made the point that there wasn't much in the Des Moines regional area. And then what their conclusion was is that it tends to create poverty, cores of poverty. Okay. So then, with HUD's encouragement, what they're attempting to do is to apply what they call inclusionary zoning, and we'll define that in a minute, on a more broad regional basis. And then the famous fair share phrase is in this. Okay. Inclusionary zoning basically is a requirement that any new development will require within the same development a certain percentage of low to moderate income housing. They may be rentals, they may be purchases, and they are subsidized by what used to be called Section 8. They've come up with a new term for it, but they don't call it Section 8 anymore. Some folks are suggesting that it be mandatory. I was in Stark County last night doing basically what I'm doing today. And I looked at their plan. I couldn't find the one for Cuyahoga County, but in Stark County, their plan for inclusionary zoning suggests that 20% of any new development be made up of low to moderate income. And the value of those 20% has to be held for 30 years. So the developer has to guarantee that for 30 years that property will be kept at that low price. Okay, another one, the folks from Portland are specialists in urban growth boundaries. If you hear this, I want you to rush to the meeting and say, no deal, because it's one heck of a bad deal. Urban growth boundaries basically draw a circle around the community and say all development must occur within that boundary. It significantly increases that value, despite of what they say, where it's going to cause more job growth and more opportunity for those medium to low income, because it jacks up the price. And there's a development in Cleveland, and I forgot the name of it, but it's something that's currently going on now in one of the cities that says we're putting in luxury high-rise within this area. So it isn't really aimed at the low to moderates here. So the land inside that boundary will get all the services. The land outside will not. And there's something that, I don't have a slide on here, but something that really fits this situation. The Kelo decision in the Supreme Court that required that property be compensated. You can't take it without due process. This urban growth boundary is a way of doing that without compensation. It's a taking of your property. Okay. Okay, I guess I jumped ahead, didn't I? This is the slide that tells you that if they decide to zone you out of that inside boundary, your property is probably going to be less. And the question that I would ask in the meeting where they're proposing this is, if you're diminishing my property, are you going to pay me for it? And of course, they're going to say no. Okay. Okay, we covered that, I think. There are other stakeholders involved in Northeast Ohio. Some of them are global, and a couple of them are local. The first one is called ICLEI. This is what I consider the equivalent of, I'm from the United Nations and I'm here to help you. Okay, they helped write Agenda 21. And they are now in about 1,000 U.S. cities. They are global. And their task is to come into your city or your county or your township and help you implement things that coincide with the goals of Agenda 21. And then the interesting thing, and this is taken from their website, their idea is to connect local communities with the global efforts of not only Agenda 21, but a couple of other UN conventions as well. Okay, the next slide. The highlighted cities here are the ones that I could find that actually paid dues to ICLEI. Dues are paid on the basis of population. They can run from anywhere from $400 to probably $4,000. I think Cleveland is probably in the higher range. The other cities are on their website, but I can't find where they actually have a contract. So I think they're probably under the influence of a neighboring city that's highlighted. Okay. Cleveland has a very deep office of sustainability. I ran across this, and if you live in Cleveland, they have 34 pages of issues and challenges and assets and plans and policies for the city of Cleveland, all having to do with sustainable development. Okay. Another player you really need to pay attention to is someone called Building America, Building One America. They have White House connections. They had a conference a couple of years ago in the White House. They had some folks from this area as part of it. And let's go to the next slide and we'll see who they are. The mayor of South Euclid is co-chair. Okay, and then there's some pretty heavy-duty folks from the office of the president that were also in attendance at this conference. And I think the next slides are going to be pretty revealing. Michael Kruglich is the co-founder of Building One America. But see what else he was. The founder of the Gamaliel Foundation, and hired Obama when he was a community organizer. By the way, I found this on a website. In case you don't know, you can find old websites by going into the archives, and you can look at websites that existed 5 years ago. They have since scrubbed this from their website. Okay, you can get the old website if you know how. Okay. The president of Building One America, I don't have to describe him. You can just see what he said. Move 4 people out and take the wealth from the suburbs for the inner city. And I happen to have a copy of his PowerPoint at that presentation at the conference they had in Washington. Okay. Another fellow from this area, Cleveland State. Cleveland State's really heavy into Agenda 21, by the way, in case you didn't know it. And Robert Kleinman, his focus is community organizing. He's the recording secretary. Okay. These are the objectives for their website, what they hope to do with the Cleveland area. By the way, Building One America is also in Dayton, they're in Cincinnati, they're in Columbus, they're in Pittsburgh, they're in Philadelphia. They're pretty much nationwide, but I think they're headquartered here in the Cleveland area. So you can see their plan is to make the suburb folks move into the cities. They plan to do that with higher gas, with tolls, making it more difficult to get into the city, make you move there. And then again, to that inclusionary zoning, move folks out of the city. Okay. There's another group that's headquartered here. Have you heard about it? It's called First Suburbs Consortium. Remember the mayor who was co-chair of the conference was from South Euclid, right? And another one, a person that was there from Lakewood. They have the same objective. They're working together. They're headquartered also in Dayton and I think Cincinnati. Okay. These are their goals, pretty much the same as Building One America. Revenue sharing, housing reform. They all hate what they call sprawl. That's for those of us who live in the suburbs. They want to stop it and they want to abolish it. That's why they want you to move back into the city. Okay. Another issue that's going on here in Northeast Ohio and again across the country is it's an analysis that anyone who gets a community block development grant is required to complete what's called an assessment to the impediments of fair housing. It used to be on a county basis. Now HUD has required it to be more on a regional basis for good reason, because they can look at fair housing across the 12 counties we live in. Then what's really interesting is in April, there's going to be a rulemaking that HUD has come up with that I think is on the next slide. Yes. They had a test case in Westchester County, New York last year, where they decided that Westchester County wasn't integrated to the level it ought to be. So they filed a lawsuit on one, and the bottom line is that they're going to take that victory and attempt to roll it out across the country. And their goal is, as you can see, there are 74,000 census tracts in this country, and they are hoping to integrate down to the census tract level, roughly 4,000 each. In Medina, we have, I think, 7 census tracts. So each one of those is going to have to be integrated to the extent that the nearest major metropolitan center is. So that means all census tracts are going to be, if they are successful, be required to be integrated at the level that, let's say, downtown Cleveland is. That's what you're picturing in your personal property takeaway here. You have, coming up in March, a forum that is open to the public. You can go, you can express your opinion there. There's another one in Summit County, I think the next slide. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, you can find this on the 2 websites, Vibrant Neo. I love this word vibrant. There must be a playbook out there, because when I look at, let's say, sustainable development going on in Kansas or California or wherever, they all have these buzzwords, and vibrant has become one of those buzzwords. So whenever you see vibrant, your antenna ought to go up, because they're fooling you. Okay. The plan here, from what I can tell, is that the consortium and the Regional Prosperity Initiative, along with Building One America and all the rest of these players, in their website, they are saying they're going to try and get more favorable statewide legislation. And this is where you all come in. You need to become engaged. You need to go to, as Don was saying, you've got to get to your local representatives, you've got to talk to your neighbors, you've got to get them up to speed on this. This is happening fast. The reason it's happening fast is that the consortium is in the 3rd year of their grant. It lasts for 3 years, and they are required to go up with results in the 3rd year. This coming year, 2013, they are going to be holding what they call visioning or consensus, or there's a lot of words for it, but meetings that they're going to present to you the plans that they have. They're going to theoretically ask you for your opinion, but they don't want it. Okay? It's a meeting where it's a predetermined outcome, and it's a tactic called the Delphi technique, if you're familiar with it. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Okay? Okay, here we are. Delphi technique is a scheme whereby they have a trained, probably a paid facilitator who will lead you in through the process of trying to get you to accept the plan that they're going to present. And it's up to us to go to those meetings and stand up and say, I don't agree. None of the options that you're offering to me are acceptable, because what they're going to do is give you 3 or 4 examples of something that represent what they want, none of which you might want. You've got to stand up and say, none of the above. You've got to try and stop it. Okay. I do have a website, so if you want to get some more info about Agenda 21 in general, you can log on there. I've got a whole thing on the Delphi technique, along with a bunch of other links that will take you to a lot of information on Agenda 21. Okay, finally, I want you to read this. HUD Hayek wrote this in 1944. Earlier, we folks have read stuff by Friedrich Hayek, but he was a genius. He was way ahead of his time. This is an extract of one of his comments, but I think the most important thing to take here out of this is that last sentence. And you may have to go on a journey that you never intended on going. Okay, it's really important to get your voice heard, and get out there and take the journey that you want. And with that, I'm going to close. Any